structure that has just broken a world record may lose its #1 position only a few years later. In a place where a bridge can carry a roadway more than 600 meters above a deep gorge. What once looked like images of the future is gradually becoming part of everyday life. In just a few decades, urbanization and infrastructure development have dramatically changed the way hundreds of millions of Chinese people live, travel, and connect with one another. The deeper we go into this country, the harder it becomes to grasp its true scale through any single structure. Behind the megacities lies an entire network of seaports, transportation systems, and energy infrastructure that must operate continuously to keep them running. If this land is your home, tell us one thing about your country that you think the world still doesn't know. China in the 21st century, a country changing so rapidly that records are only temporary, and today's limits may become tomorrow's starting point. For many cities, completing their tallest building can be the achievement of an entire generation. But in China, that is often only the starting point. To understand where this transformation began, there is no place more fitting than Shanghai. Just a few decades ago, the western bank of the Huangpu River was still almost the sole center of the city. Along the Bund stood European-style buildings constructed in the early 20th century. An area that once concentrated banks, trading companies, and international financial institutions. For many years, this was the familiar image of Shanghai stone buildings, forming a low skyline that remained almost unchanged. But Shanghai's future was not built on that same riverbank. In the early 1990s, Pudong was still mainly farmland, warehouses, and low-rise residential areas when the district was chosen as a new financial and economic center. Construction began to completely transform the land east of the Huangpu River. The Oriental Pearl appeared in 1994 at more than 460 meters tall, becoming the first sign of a new Shanghai. In 1999, Jinmao Tower rose to nearly 420 meters, less than a decade later. The Shanghai World Financial Center reached 492 meters. Then, in 2015, Shanghai Tower pushed the limit to 632 meters. The tower's twisting form helps reduce wind loads, while its double-layer glass facade helps save energy. In just over 2 decades, Pudong went from a low-rise area to a district filled with Shanghai's iconic towers. But Shanghai's ambition did not stop at building higher. Once skyscrapers had become a familiar sight, the city began experimenting with entirely new approaches to construction. One prominent example is the 1,000 Trees project. Instead of creating another enormous concrete block, the development was designed like an artificial hillside, with thousands of trees growing atop tiered concrete columns. Offices, shops, and public spaces are arranged among the trees, blurring the boundary between architecture and nature. This shows that Shanghai's goal is no longer simply to build taller structures, but to experiment with new urban models and to sustain a megacity like this. A logistic system of comparable scale must exist behind that skyline. Built on offshore islands and connected to the mainland by the Donghai Bridge, it is the world's largest container port. Each year, it handles more than 47 million containers, transporting goods between China's industrial centers and markets across every continent. That scale is matched by a high level of automation, autonomous vehicles, robotic cranes, and intelligent coordination systems help move enormous volumes of cargo continuously through the port. From Pudong to Yangshan, just a few decades have dramatically transformed the image of Shanghai. But to see just how quickly a city can change, we have to go farther south in Shenzhen. Most of the city's modern appearance has taken shape in only a few decades. Since becoming a special economic zone in 1980, Shenzhen has developed at an extremely rapid pace. The nearly 600-meter-tall Ping An Finance Center is the most visible sign. But the transformation is not limited to height. The city has also become a testing ground for new urban models. BYD Skyrail elevates transportation above the ground, while new developments combine offices, housing, and public spaces within the same structure. Shanghai and Shenzhen show that massive scale is no longer an isolated phenomenon. What was once considered bold is gradually becoming part of the way Chinese cities develop. But this transformation is taking place across a country carrying thousands of years of history, and in many cities. The new has not completely replaced the old, they are existing right beside each other. The more modern a city becomes, the more traces of the past it usually has to erase. But in one place in China, palaces more than 6 centuries old still stand amid one of the largest urbanization processes on the planet. At the northern edge of the North China Plain, where routes from China's most densely populated agricultural region meet corridors leading northward, Beijing repeatedly became a center of power for Chinese dynasties. Within a city that has existed for more than 3,000 years, structures of the 21st century continue to reshape the capital. The CCTV headquarters is one of the clearest symbols of this period. The section of the structure extending out into open space makes the building appear to defy gravity itself. But behind that form is a steel framework engineered to distribute loads throughout the entire building. But by the end of the 20th century, the city began to expand beyond its old boundaries. The population grew rapidly. New commercial districts expanded eastward. Ring Road followed Ring Road. Areas that had once been outside the center were gradually absorbed into an increasingly vast metropolis. Then, in 2001, an important moment arrived. Beijing won the right to host the 2008 Summer Olympics. Over the next 7 years, the city entered one of its most intense periods of construction. Transportation networks were expanded, new areas were developed, and numerous structures appeared before billions of people around the world turned their attention to the Chinese capital. The National Stadium was created during this period. More than 40,000 tons of steel were used to form the main Olympic Stadium. But the significance of the structure lies not only in its size or its shape, when the Olympic opening ceremony took place in August 2008, the bird's nest became an image showing how China wanted to present a new face to the world. A country once known through its ancient dynasties now wanted to be seen as one of the most dynamic centers of development in the 21st century. But the end of the Olympics did not stop this process. The Eastern Commercial District continued to expand. New structures continued to appear across the capital's skyline. Wangjing Soho and Galaxy Soho continued to experiment with new architectural forms, with curved surfaces and interconnected building masses forming continuous systems. Within a single generation, Beijing's appearance changed so dramatically that it would be difficult to recognize when compared with the same city just a few decades earlier. Yet right in the center of the city, a structure established more than 6 centuries ago remains almost impossible to replace. More than 600 years after its first bricks were laid, the Forbidden City still stands within a metropolis of more than 20 million people. Around the old palace, subway lines, financial districts, and technology centers continue to expand in every direction. But Beijing's past does not exist only behind its red walls. Not far from the Forbidden City, many Hutong neighborhoods still remain within the modern city, in these alleys. Part of the traditional rhythm of life continues across generations. That is a distinctive image of Beijing. Structures representing China's future can stand only a few streets away from traces of its past. Beijing is not the only place where people have had to adapt to the land they live on. In many other parts of China, what determines how cities are built is not history, but terrain. In southwestern China, building a road has never been as simple as laying asphalt on the ground. Rivers lie deep below the plateaus, while cliffs rising hundreds of meters stand on either side. To carry an expressway through this terrain, engineers had to confront a much bigger question: how can a road continue when there is almost no ground left ahead to build on? For many years, Beipanjiang was the clearest demonstration of this way of thinking. The bridge carries an expressway across a canyon at a height of about 565 meters above the river. When it opened, the distance from the bridge deck to the water made Beipanjiang the highest bridge in the world. But the record was not the most important legacy of Beipanjiang. The bridge proved that areas once divided by terrain could now be connected by a modern transportation route, turning slow and dangerous journeys across the mountains into trips that take only a few minutes. For many communities living among the mountains of southwestern China, this meant more than easier travel. It also made jobs, education, and major economic centers more accessible than before. And once that became possible, the next limit was immediately set, less than a decade later, also in Guizhou. The Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge raised the roadway more than 600 meters above the bottom of the gorge. Beipanjiang's record was broken, but that is exactly what reveals the speed of this transformation. A structure that had been considered the limit of engineering only a few years earlier became the benchmark for building something even more ambitious. In Hunan, the Aizhai Bridge hangs about 350 meters above the canyon, connecting two cliffs that once made building a road through this area extremely difficult. But what is remarkable is not just its height. The two ends of the bridge connect almost directly to tunnels running through the mountain. the expressway bursts out from inside the rock into open space, crosses the gorge, and then disappears again into the mountain on the opposite side. Bridges, tunnels, and expressways, once separate elements, are now combined into an almost seamless transportation route through the terrain. Today, structures like the Yangtze Bridge have made the mountains of southwestern China a place that attracts the attention of travelers, photographers, and people who want to see transportation infrastructure suspended among enormous canyons with their own eyes. But the mountains and valleys of the Southwest do more than shape its roads. Deeper into this region, they also shape where people live. A city usually begins on level ground. Roads are built, houses rise on both sides, and the urban area continues to expand. But what happens when, almost from the very beginning, the ground is already uneven? Where the Yangtze and Jialing rivers meet, mountain slopes continuously raise and lower the city. Roads struggle to remain at the same elevation, while residential areas are divided by slopes, valleys, and waterways. As the population grew, the city could not solve everything simply by continuing to expand across the ground. It began to develop on multiple levels. One road can run above another. Bridges connect directly to residential areas on hillsides, public elevators, stairways, and pedestrian walkways have become a familiar part of everyday life. For many Chongqing residents, climbing slopes, taking public elevators, or moving between different elevations is simply part of daily life. A journey of a few hundred meters on a map can sometimes involve stairways, slopes, and multiple levels of transportation. Even the concept of the ground floor is no longer simple. Someone can enter a building from street level, pass through several floors, then leave through another exit and discover that they are still standing on a street. The only difference is that this street is tens of meters higher than where they entered. Once the city began operating this way, transportation also had to adapt. At Liziba, a monorail line needed to pass through an area that was already densely built up. But there was almost no space left between the tracks and the surrounding structures. Instead of demolishing an entire residential area to make way for the line, the city chose another solution. The train passes through a building. Liziba Station is integrated directly into the structure, allowing the railway and the architecture to share the same space instead of forcing one to give way entirely to the other. But this is not a strange idea created simply to attract attention. It is the result of the way Chongqing has been forced to develop. This is even clearer at Hongya Cave. The complex clings to the slope beside the Yellow River, with different levels connecting directly to roads at different elevations. A level that sits at ground level on one side may already be many floors above the ground when viewed from the other. The city's space, therefore, does not simply spread outward, it is stacked vertically. But overcoming the terrain does not mean the city can continue expanding forever. As populations become increasingly concentrated in major cities, another limit begins to emerge: the amount of land available for construction. One of the cities with the most high-rise buildings in the world developed vertically for a very simple reason: there is not much land available for construction. One of the cities with the most high-rise buildings in the world developed vertically for a very simple reason: there is not much land available for construction. More than 7 million people live in a territory where most of the land is mountainous, while areas suitable for construction are concentrated mainly along narrow stretches of coastal land. Hong Kong, therefore, does not have vast areas of flat land that would allow the city to keep expanding outward. The population has grown. Economic activity has become increasingly concentrated, but the amount of buildable land remains extremely limited. More than 9,000 buildings over 100 meters tall have been built here. Dense residential complexes such as the Monster Building concentrate a large number of apartments within a very small area, while 2 IFC carries dozens of floors of offices and financial activity. But the more people are moved upward, the more people must travel through the same streets below. Transportation space has also begun to be divided into multiple levels. Double-decker trams continue to run through the streets, while the MTR carries a large share of passenger traffic beneath the city. Many stations are also directly connected to shopping centers, offices, and developments above them. The same area of land is used multiple times, but no matter how high the city builds or how deep it digs, Hong Kong's land area does not increase on its own. Kai Tak once demonstrated that limitation. The airport stood directly within the urban area, with its runway extending into Victoria Harbour, as the city continued to develop around it. The space available for aviation became increasingly restricted, while demand continued to grow. In 1998, Kai Tak closed. The new international airport was moved to Chek Lap Kok near Lantau Island. where small islands and surrounding waters were reclaimed to create a site large enough for one of the region's most important aviation gateways. And once the city began expanding into the sea, the story was no longer simply about finding more land. It shifted toward connecting cities located around the same body of water. At this point, the transformation is no longer limited to how a single city adapts. It is appearing in more and more cities across China. But there is something remarkable. The faster China changes, the more many things somehow do not disappear. One of the fastest growing economies in the world still makes room for customs that have existed for centuries. Every morning in Chengdu, as office buildings begin to light up and crowds pour toward modern metro lines, another rhythm of life unfolds at the same time. In the city's ancient temples, incense smoke still rises just as it did long before glass towers appeared. Young people come to pray for good luck before important exams. Parents burn incense for the health and well-being of their families. Many older people still maintain rituals that have been part of their lives since childhood. What is remarkable is not that these places still exist among modern cities, but that they continue to remain part of the daily lives of millions of people. While modernization in many parts of the world has gradually caused older customs to fade, in China, development often takes place alongside traditions that have existed for centuries. New technology districts may appear only a few streets away from an ancient temple. But this sense of the past and present existing side by side is not limited to the streets of Chengdu. Just a short distance outside the city, it becomes even clearer on mountain slopes that have been connected to the spiritual life of the Chinese people for centuries. There was a time when many people believed that modernization would eventually cause places like this to gradually fade into the past. But that did not happen. Along the stone paths leading up Mount Qingcheng, people continue to arrive every day. Some come because of their beliefs, some because of family traditions, while others simply want to temporarily escape the increasingly fast pace of urban life. This shows that change in China does not happen by completely replacing the old with the new. While cities, technology districts, and research centers continue to expand, many long-standing cultural values are still preserved. When looking at the world's highest bridges or high-speed railway lines, It is easy to think that China's story is only about the speed of development. But beneath those changes, traditions that have endured for centuries still remain. And when a vast country must both preserve its past and operate some of the most modern systems in the world, another question begins to emerge: what is keeping all of it running? A city can build thousands more buildings. An industrial zone can expand by dozens of kilometers, but everything will stop functioning if an invisible flow is interrupted. In China, where cities, factories, seaports, and transportation systems all operate on an enormous scale, that demand has led to projects just as massive as the cities they serve. One of them stands on the Yangtze River. The Yangtze flows for more than 6,000 kilometers from the Tibetan Plateau to the East China Sea, passing through many of China's major population and industrial regions. The river's enormous volume of water has long been both a resource and a source of flood risk for downstream areas. The Three Gorges Dam emerged in this very context. The project in Hubei has 34 generating units with a total capacity of about 22,500 megawatts. But the Three Gorges Dam was not built solely to generate electricity. The Yangtze is also one of China's most important transportation routes. Alongside the turbine system are therefore multi-stage ship locks and a massive ship lift, allowing vessels to continue passing through the dam. The Three Gorges Dam therefore serves several roles at the same time, generating electricity, regulating water flow, and maintaining transportation along the country's largest river. But China is too vast for a single river to meet its growing energy demand. Farther to the northwest, water becomes scarcer instead. Sunlight and wind begin to become the most important resources. Around Jiuquan and the edge of the Gobi Desert, natural conditions are almost the opposite of those in the Yangtze River basin. The climate is dry and the population is sparse. Vast areas of land lie far from the megacities of the East for a long time. Those very conditions limited the region's development potential. But for renewable energy, they have a very different significance. Vast open spaces allow large clusters of wind turbines to be developed, while the dry climate and abundant sunlight create opportunities for solar power generation. Areas that are difficult to develop into major population centers can now serve an entirely different function, producing energy for places located far away. Most of China's electricity demand is concentrated in cities and industrial areas in the east, while many hydropower, wind, and solar resources are located deep inland. Generating electricity is already difficult. Transmitting that amount of electricity thousands of kilometers is another challenge entirely. To overcome this distance, China developed an ultra-high voltage electricity transmission network, or UHV. This system allows large amounts of electricity to be transmitted from hydropower, wind, and solar regions in the west to major consumption centers in the east. And when electricity can travel thousands of kilometers to keep enormous cities running, the scale of development has expanded far beyond what can be seen within a single city. Just a few decades have been enough to change the way China operates. Development is no longer taking place separately in only a few cities. It is expanding on a much larger scale, where cities, transportation, industry, and energy increasingly depend on one another to continue developing. And that process is still underway. What we see today is not yet the final image of China in the 21st century. Many regions are still expanding. New systems are still taking shape. And the face of this country continues to change year by year. While the world is still looking at what China has already built, the country has already begun building what will come next.